Hi, my name is Christian Hardy, and the purpose of this video is to present my project for Liberty University's History 300 course. The title of this project is The Hardy Family Post-Reconstruction to the Pre-Civil Rights Era. The period of time that I would like to cover will be from the late 1800s all the way up to the mid 1900s, right before we saw the events of the Montgomery Boys boycott and other historically significant events pertinent to civil rights. The purpose of this project is to mainly cover the lifetime of the Hardy family and the important historical events that surrounded that time. To begin this presentation, we'll start in 1860 when Doc Hardy was born into slavery. Yet, 3 years later, the Emancipation Proclamation freed all slaves in the Confederate states, and 5 years later, the 13th Amendment was signed, abolishing slavery in all states. This period is known as Reconstruction, and it was America's first attempt at interracial democracy. Once the war ended, the government created the Freedmen's Bureau, which allowed newly freed men the basic rights of education and health services. It was around this time that you saw universities like Alabama State University that began as the Lincoln Normal School, which was an agricultural school, which later turned into a teachers college, and which is what is primarily known now, which is in Montgomery, Alabama, which is not too far from Lowndes County, where the Hardy family settled after 1920. And you also saw the beginning of Tuskegee University, which also was founded in the late 1800s after the Freedmen's Bureau was established. And this is where you saw Booker T. Washington, who was an advocate for the advancement of colored people by means of education. And this is also where you saw the well-known George Washington Carver, the inventor and scientist, do many of his works, and that's the school in which he taught. But the Freedmen's Bureau, along with the Civil Rights Act of 1866, helped African Americans to become landowners by distributing parcels of land abandoned during the war to ex-slaves. So slaves, many that even fought in the Civil War, were now becoming landowners and trying to acclimate themselves into the American society that previously saw them as slaves. Now, not only were slaves becoming, or ex-slaves becoming landowners, but they also were become politicians and government officials. According to the Gilder Lehrman Institute of American History, in 1870, Hiram Rose became the first African American to serve in Congress. As an African American, he was not alone in serving in the government during Reconstruction. Between 1865 and 1877, many African Americans served in state and local politics. 14 black men served in the House of Representatives between 1869 and 1877. 6 served as lieutenant governors, and more than 600 served in the southern state legislatures. Reconstruction's end in 1877, however, allowed white Southerners to push African Americans out of the government. And so it was here in the 1870s that we saw, or 1877 and beyond, that we began to see hate groups like the Ku Klux Klan sprout up and begin terrorizing blacks and forcing many into what is known as the Great Migration, where blacks who couldn't find opportunity in the South because of Southern hatred and intolerance moved up north to work in the industries in places like Detroit or Chicago or wherever. Immediately after this time, at the middle of the 1870s, the black church became very important. It was here that you saw churches like that of First Baptist of Selma, which was led by C.J. Hardy. The black church played a vital part in the black community during Reconstruction. It was not only that blacks found hope and spiritual nourishment, but the church was also a place of social gathering, political education, and community organizing. Ministers like Hardy were tasked with being vocal members of of the community when it came to important issues. And this was a trend that we saw from this period of time all the way up until the civil rights era, where you had people like Fred Shuttlesworth or Martin Luther King, or even nowadays with Reverend Al Sharpton. Um, those being religious figures that also actively engage in the social matters of the time. Um, Around this time, about 10 years later, or a decade later, many parties from, or many blacks and whites from the Black Belt region, which would include the Lowndes County, Dallas, and Selma area, um, began to migrate towards Birmingham and other more urbanized areas because of the boll weevil invasion. During the boll weevil invasion, there was an infestation of pests that came and killed the crops, which kind of debilitated the textile, or really the cotton industry, um, which many of ex-slaves and I guess lower class whites, they thrived in that industry. So when that boll weevil crisis came through, it forced another migration into the city. And here we're here. Terry Hardy speak more on it as it impacted the Hardy family.
Well, my grandparents came from Lowndes County. My grandfather came from Lowndes County, my mother's father. And my mother's mother came from Autoga County. They got married, met somewhere down there. I think they were picking cotton together or something to that effect. And they moved. They came to, got married, and moved to Birmingham. He got a job at the steel plant.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you said that they picked cotton, and then they also did U.S. Steel.
Well, they picked cotton where they were from, which is Lowndes County and Ottawa County, and they wound up moving to Birmingham and settling in Westfield. Westfield is no longer even a community, but it was right there by the plant, and they had houses back then that they were set up for the workers, and they charged them rent out of their check. So they built houses in there so that if you didn't have a car or whatever, and these were people who moved from like the rural areas,
right,
and they came up and even had a commissary, so you didn't have to go anywhere. You didn't need a car.
Everything was set up.
Everything was set up. The housing, where you bought grocery at and everything.
Okay, yeah, and that was something that went on all throughout the nation, where they had like different communities that were built for the manufacturers, which had the schools and the grocery stores and everything like that, so that the workers could, work. Reconstruction was a difficult time for America. At least for some, it was a time of hope. The period of time that followed left many without hope. It would be another 50 years before African Americans would regain ground in all facets of life, in entertainment, specifically sports and music culture. You saw many African Americans becoming successful, like Wilson Pickett. Um, However, that wasn't the case for many African Americans, and so the civil rights movement, which started in the early 1950s, uh, began and catalyzed the change that affected the generation that we see now, and the change in progress that we see. Um, Again, my name is Christian Hardy, and this has been my Liberty University History 300 project, the Hardy family, post Reconstruction to the pre-Civil War era. Thank you.